my name is Dongping Zheng, and welcome to the module about translanguaging pedagogy in lower secondary school classrooms in Vietnam. And I am from University of Hawaii at the I need to redo this. I'm sorry.
All right.
Can we?
The first part. When you introduce, please do not look at it.
Okay.
Look at the camera.
Right. So welcome to module. Okay. Let's read this.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Dongping Zheng. I will be the instructor for the module for lower secondary school. Oh God, I'm sorry. What did you say? Welcome to the module
about translanguaging
in secondary classrooms.
I am
What's lower secondary or secondary?
Lower secondary.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
right.
Okay.
Can we start now? Chu?
Restart.
All right.
Hello, my name is Dongping Zheng. I am from. Oh wow, this is terrible.
Okay.
What?
Third time.
Okay, I won't do this.
Okay.
Okay, so I will just read this and then say I am. Okay. Again, ready?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the module on translanguaging for lower secondary school classrooms. My name is Dongping Zheng. I am from the Department of Second Language Studies at University of Hawaii. And this is my colleague, Han.
Hello, I'm Hanh and I'm from the University of Languages and International Study. It's my pleasure to be here with Dongping to discuss or to have a conversation about translanguaging at the secondary or lower secondary classrooms.
Excellent. And I'd like to state that our relationship here, sometimes Ms. Han can act as a teacher, so asking some questions that teachers would ask. And I will try my best to answer the questions. And sometimes I may be a learner, so I may ask Ms. Han questions, especially when contexts in Vietnam rises. I like to ask questions from you as well.
Yes, sure. Okay, so talking about translanguaging, my very first concern is about the terms. So about the term translanguaging and languaging, so what are they all about? Can you explain to me, please?
Okay, so translanguaging and languaging are related. We can imagine we just need to add trans in front of languaging. So in order to understand translanguaging, let's go back a little bit to talk about languaging. So languaging is a phenomenon that researchers from different fields, from linguistics to cognitive sciences and to educational psychology as well. Researchers start to see our learning activities and our language activities that related to learning can be a process, can be something that can be something that is in the process of making, in the process of collaborating, in the process of coordinating. So languaging thus to be used as a term to describe activities that we do that involves language, activities such as singing and dreaming, signing, talking, right? These first order activities happening right here now involves language. So the language is alive. When we are languaging, our bodies are involved using gestures. When we are languaging, we invoke experiences from the past, from the stories we live by, from the interactions that we remember. So the second order that we call these history or grammar or lexicon rules, the second order become alive in our first order languaging. So in that sense, languaging processes are always ongoing, but at the same time, we rely on the second order grammar or other social cultural norms. So when we add trans, it's evident that other language resources that is usually called maybe Chinese, Vietnamese, English, or other languages, named languages, as translanguaging researchers would call them, they become available to us. So we trans these different semiotics, different modalities, even within the same named languages, such as Vietnamese, we use gestures, we use different voices, we use different eye contact to make meaning, to make sense. So trans means trans from different named languages or semiotics or modalities. So that is very useful concept for us to think about language learning and language learning pedagogy in this era of globalization. Yeah, that's a short answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm much more clear about the terms. But so what does L1 or mother tongue play? What roles the mother tongue play in L2 classroom?
Good question. So the mother tongue or L1, or sometimes now we call them home languages, because it can be two languages, right? Some kids speak English at home, speak Vietnamese at home. So when we allow translanguaging in classrooms, particularly, we bring the children's life from home and from their communities to classrooms. So children do not see these very clear boundaries of a home where special ways of learning occur, or classroom, another way of learning occur. They see home, community, classroom as continuum, because language can be used to bridge the home practices, especially when home languages are one or two. So children can maintain the home languages and at the same time to learn English or other additional languages. So home languages plays a role to keep that continuum from home space, community space, to classroom space. That's the first point. The second point is the home language can be used as an extra or valuable resources to help children to learn both how to behave in a societal accepted ways, because the home values can be brought to classrooms. And secondly, the home languages can play a role for them to express themselves clearly, especially in English language classrooms. So there are multiple ways to look at home languages, the role of home languages in classrooms. So let's recap. There's a little bit long explanation. Let's recap. So the home language can be used as an extra resources to help children to access materials in English by using up dictionaries, by using skills such as translation. Right. Secondly, the home language can be brought in to support that continuum of space from home to classroom. Right. So mainly these two.
Yeah, it seems like the student they are more equipped with the like available resources, because the home language is something they are like very clear about, right?
Exactly. They usually do very well in their home languages because they're comfortable with. They've grown up with the caretakers, like their parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, right? They are very confident in expressing their needs and expressing their thoughts, even creatively expressing their thoughts. If they can be fully enact who they are for a holistic development as children going through different ages, especially at the lower secondary school level, when children experience cognitive, emotional, and physical growth dramatically. They all of a sudden change from a a child to an adolescent to a youth, right? So experience lots of confusion and lots of growth. They want to be a different person. So with that support, they can be fully developed.
Okay, but another question comes up to my mind that you know that the monolingual ideology is deeply rooted in many education system, and so how to encourage translanguaging practice in the English language classroom, the teaching policy. I mean, why that ideology is so so
entrenched, entrenched in school systems. Right. That is a huge question. It's a question that cannot be solved by teachers only, cannot be solved by societies only, cannot be solved by parents only, or administrators only. It requires, in my view, it requires a whole team or whole organic system to slowly adapt the bilingual or multilingual, multi-competent ways of looking at languages.
Yes.
So, but what we can do is from teachers or from researchers is to slowly open ourselves to see, even though we've grown up in a society that seems monolingual. For example, when I grown up speaking Mandarin Chinese only. It seems very monolingual. What about in Vietnam? What about you? You grown up as monolingual, so-called monolingual?
Yeah, I grown up as a monolingual, and I started learning English since I am in grade 3. It means I'm about 7 or 8 years old. So
you started to learn English.
Yes, so it is one kind of monolingual,
right.
I think.
Yes, that's so appears to be monolingual because we use named languages, Vietnamese or Chinese, as a demarcation to talk about home languages or additional languages or L1, L2. But the new way or the languaging way of looking at language is that other modalities, other semiotics can be considered as language, because when we are languaging, we invoke our past experiences or immediate resources available. This is an example I like to bring that we may not think as it was, because I thought I'd grown up monolingual, but when I was a child, my family went to the countryside during Cultural Revolution. So we live on the border with North Korea, and we have a radio. I still remember the shape and the color of that radio station, right? And I like to attune the radio wavelengths because I want to hear. There are lots of children programs sometimes, and sometimes just regular news broadcasting. But many times, because we lived in countryside, many times we did not have a great signal, but we're very close to North Korea. And I tuned. I said, that sounds something different. It's Korean. At the time, I asked my parents, what is that? It's Korean. And because we cannot receive other programs, so the Korean is playing from our radio all the time. And when I went to Korea, I was like, that's the first thing I remember from our radio. So almost the third day, I started to doing what Korean person would do, bowing and 안녕하세요, doing the same prosody. So what do you say? Do I grown up monolingually? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right. So I had some influence of Korean, and that's what I remember. other resources available, I probably not remember. But I do remember reading the children's books at the time, their graphics. We make sense from the graphic novels, right? And then there are other things that people do that we just immediately taking advantage of this resource that as children we don't know at the metacognitive level. Now as researchers, oh, that's how I pick up or acquire first language or home language. So it's not monolinguals, multiple, cross, big range of different resources available.
Yeah, I think for the modern context, like today, children they are growing up. I think most of them multilingual instead of monolingual because of the influence of the media, right? Yeah.
Very good question that lead to medium and technology, TV, right? We're talking in front of the camera.
Okay, thank you for your answers. Now, I think that this is the most frequently asked question by teachers about translanguaging practice is that how can an English teacher balance the use of home language and English in their English classroom?
Yes. Good, very good question. I remember this question from our pre-questionnaire of the online workshops we gave last year. So balancing is always an act of art because that requires you to know each other, so we don't push too hard, we don't pull too hard, and requires know about the situation and the status, the emotional status and the cognitive status of the children. So it requires us to be teachers to be very alert on the constantly look out of the situation of our children. So speaking of that, the balancing actually is very easy to do because when we think about in real life situations, if I drink too much coffee, I know I probably speak too fast. I know maybe it may give me a headache. I need to stop right away. So we need to be vigilant to see what children's doing. We can push really hard until children fall apart. Probably not. Probably we don't want to do that because that within the classroom size, I don't know how many children usually in one classroom in the lower secondary school. How many usually in the classroom? 50?
It depends whether it is public school or private school.
Right.
Normally for private school it can around 30 or 40 students per class. But for public school it's more crowded for 50 or even 60 students for each class.
Exactly. So in that situation, it might be very difficult for a teacher to take care of each student at one time. So in that situation, I would highly recommend to create spaces or use time. Like within this 10 minutes, let's do English only. There's nothing wrong with English only. So when we talk about translanguaging, there's so many different scales of translanguaging. We can translanguage at a instantaneous level. If I speak Vietnamese, if you speak Chinese, you know, we can do more instantaneous translanguaging. But it can be translanguaging today and tomorrow, right? Think about different time scales. So I would say for a classroom, students ranging from 30 to 60, usually 40 minutes a session, a class period, right? I would create a time-bound activity. This 10 minutes, when we teach grammar, maybe we translanguaging in using Vietnamese to teach the grammatical rules. And the next 10 minutes, you just play and play whatever children can bring from home. They can bring different artifacts. They can bring. We can use games. We brought these games, right? And children are very good, no matter what age, even adults, right? If you agree with us, please raise your hand or nodding with us, okay? So we're all very good at play, and teachers can prepare some of these games. And this one we purchased is called ecosystem game. I'll explain this a little bit later, but on the topic of gameplay in the next 10 minutes, right? The first 10 minutes, very serious. Let's just learn grammar. Nothing wrong about learning grammar. Let's just make sure the pronunciation is correct. Say ecosystem. Yeah, sometimes people say ecosystem. Fine, you speak British English or American English, ecosystem. Let's make sure children can take a language stance to speak correctly in terms of pronunciation or grammatical rules. Then, next 10 minutes, let's just play. It doesn't matter what you speak or what you say in whatever languages or whatever resources available, just play. The goal of playing is not to say ecosystem correct. We just did that. Don't worry about that now. That space is over. Let's move on to the next space. This space, the ideal goal is to play the game, see who wins the game. There's a scoring system, how to make your own ecosystem. So you can see playing a game can elevate children's attention to language only, to language as a code, to how to say bee, how to say eagle, how to say fox. Move that away to focusing on how do I win this game? Of course, we can talk about competitive games or collaborative games. Over competition sometimes not very good. So the point here is to create these different time zones and space for children to explain and experience things differently so that they can translanguage freely. Speaking of that, I wanted to mention that languaging and translanguaging provoke the notion that, again, we said that language plays a role in the activities that involves language, right? That's why we move from talking about language teaching or languages to the verb form or gerundative form of languaging or translanguaging. That also means experiencing, not just languaging to talk about grammar, to teach grammar, but experiencing the world in language. So in that sense, we need to create that space to play, to experience each other. So I know, oh, I think Han likes bees, so I may keep the card for Han for bees, right? And that help children to see themselves in others' shoes, help them to become more compassionate persons, not just compete with words, right? You can see play or collaborative activities really help them to develop their identities. And if we foster a kind of compassion in multiple languages, they become multilingual speakers who embody multilingual or diversity, the multilingual culture and diversity. So they become more full persons. I extend that a little bit, but I thought it's a related topic.
Right. Because I think that the aim of education is like to develop a very well-rounded ways, and we will have a very holistic approach to educate the children, right?
Exactly. That's what the translanguaging can provide, that space for children to play, to become themselves.
Yeah.
to become bilingual. In the chapter we wrote for the booklet, I have a section on to become, right? To become what? Become a person. But in this day and age, become a bilingual person, become a multilingual person, become a person who have different perspectives to look at one problem at a time. Not to say that's right, that's wrong, but from another culture,
Yeah.
it might be different.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your very elaborative explanation
Sure.
about that question. And I hope that the teachers who also have that concern, they will have more clear view into the proportion of using the home language into their English classroom, right?
Right.
Now, when you talk about the very specific teaching strategy, I would like to ask you about the specific skills or reading, writing, or speaking.
Right.
How can I teach, for example, reading in using translanguaging pedagogy?
Good question. A good lead from the previous one to this one. So the previous one, we wanted to have different spaces, clear, demarcated space. When we do actual teaching, when the center is on the teacher or teacher is at the center, translanguaging between Vietnamese can be fostered in that teaching space. And the other space for play, right, just say, okay, doesn't matter what you do. That way we can balance the language use of first language, second language, or home language, additional languages. So move on to this one on different skills. I like to put them back together, not demarcating them so clearly. Here, I like to use a theory that proposed by a scholar named Wang Chuming. Last name is Wang, first name Chuming, from Guangdong Studies, Studies of Foreign Languages in China. His approach of Xu hypothesis. Xu in Chinese, it means completion, extension, and creation. So in the whole Xu hypothesis, reading, writing, speaking, listening are seen as a continuum. So putting it together, I recommend that when we want to teach speaking skill, for example. So before speaking, usually what do you do? If I just,
I think that before speaking, we'll have, give them some input.
Right.
Yeah, like the vocabulary, the structures, and also get them to know the topic they are going to talk about.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, if we come in here, even though we look so relaxed, I hope, and look like we just have a conversation, but we did lots of preparation.
Right.
We have lots of inputs. we have to read quite a bit, and with years of experience, all condensed at this moment. Same for children, right? If they can come in to do speaking, they need to read quite a bit to be familiarized with their topic. And after that, so before that you can read or you can listen. If you want to train them with an accent, either British English or Australian English or American English, have them listen to a podcast of that accent, and they would come in to speak with a British accent or an American accent or a Vietnamese accent. Oh, beautiful. So I immediately have them engage in speaking activities, have them talk about their experiences at home or different movies they watch, what they think, So in that sense, the input is still fresh, so they can use the words right away. So that's very good. You mentioned provide some vocabulary list, and I would also recommend, besides clear vocabulary list, they would listen to something because they can hear the sound, right? And if you want to train the connection between reading and speaking, you can have them read something. Reading is very good at for us to remember because the special visual perception is very good for us to have a visual image of the grammatical rules. So it depends on the pedagogical goals. We can have them do reading before speaking, listening before speaking, or if we want to teach writing, we can have them do reading before writing. But the important fact here is have them do it right away before their short-term memory disappears, right? Then following up to the 续 means to continue, and they can do homework assignment to reinforce what they have listened, what they spoke about, and write them down for homework. So this whole ecosystem of 续 to continue, to complete, to create.
Yeah, I'm after listening to your advice. I'm thinking about the context that that the teachers they are facing up with, like because of the time constraint, within 1 or 2 periods. I think that 45 minutes for a period. With those activities conducted, so I think that I think that they have to plan very well and detailed, because normally if they finish with the vocabulary teaching or the reading part, they may run out of time for the follow-up activities. Yes.
Yeah.
So do you have some kind of advice for them on the planning of the lessons, so they can don't run out of time?
Right. Very good question. So in that sense, I would recommend a concept that called blended learning. Have you heard about it? We talked about this yesterday, right?
Yes.
So blended learning, the simplest definition for blended learning is to make use of technology that would take care of things can be done at home, and make use of the classroom space when teachers and students are together. So applying the concept of blended learning, we can save some classroom space. For example, I think in the chapter for the lower secondary school students, what unit I talk about? I think it's the green world.
Yeah, the green
maybe
world.
Yes. So then, and there are CD companions, right? The textbook has companions of the website and CD and recording.
Yes.
Children can do that at home. They don't need to use the class time to listen to the audio recording. So, and just listening wouldn't sustain their memory. If the assignment is go home and listen to this package about the green world and write down what the text is saying in Vietnamese or English, doesn't matter, and to sustain that at home a little bit, bring these ideas to your parents and ask them, have you done this before? Did you recycle plastic bottles? Did we make some money from recycling the plastic bottles?
Yeah.
Right? So that this kind of interview or conversation with their parents or with especially grandparents can create intergeneration connection and relationship. and also the wisdom the older generation can provide them. Then they bring some Vietnamese values in Vietnamese to classroom.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
translanguaging already happening. Because if you only rely on the input from the textbook, it's only English, and the ideas may be very limited because the level the textbook was written is based on this lower secondary school level. The more complex ideas probably cannot put there in English.
Yeah. May I interrupt you in this?
Sure.
If they like, you said that they will like bring something like from their parents or grandparents' wisdom to the class in Vietnamese, right? So, that how can they like? They have to translate it into English, or how, is there any way that they can like make it as their own and they can express it in English? You know?
Yes, very good, excellent.
Yes.
So we're really continue. First, have them just start from the textbook they're comfortable with, and then write down the idea to talk to their parents or grandparents or community members, whomever they met on the street even, right? Then they can bring the wisdom to the classroom if they have time. For those children who have extra resources, we can challenge them saying, can you please look up these whatever items, the wise suggestions from your grandparents, write them down and use Google Translation or your dictionary. Try to translate yourselves. Have them give it a try themselves so they can struggle a little bit. I don't know how to say a word. I'm going to have a good one. Okay, I have this one. I bought it yesterday. Okay, so the wisdom is that my grandparents told me that drinking
Brown
rice flowers. Actually the tea, I want to get the tea, but they said this one is cooked, it's ready to use. So pretend this is brown rice tea or brown rice flour. Drinking that can help us to make the world greener. What does that mean? I don't know. Because it'll help you to become detoxify. Then if your body is cleansed, it's unlikely that you get sick. If you don't get sick, you don't make use of the medical resources, you are helping the world to become a greener space. Okay? So the grandparents' suggestion is to drink brown rice, fried or cooked brown rice tea. Really? It's true.
So far implication, I think.
It's too far, right?
Yeah.
It's a little too far, but for lack of a better example, we use this example. But it's truly, I went to the store, I text you, I said, what does this mean? What does this say? Because I know from the fact of the Chinese medicine point of view, brown rice tea.
It's good for
It's
health.
good for health. It's cleansing your toxins accumulated in your body. So if that's the case, it's not direct link to the green world, but you can see we are all in this ecosystem. The grandparents say we are all in this one ecosystem. Please drink your brown rice tea. So, and then you write it down. My grandma, I'm the grandma now. My grandma said I should drink the brown rice tea because we are all in this one world. I don't know what that means, but I wrote it down anyway. I translated in Google English or using my dictionary. I bring it to the class. I talked to the teacher. The teacher said, "Oh, I heard of it too. It's really good for you." Or the kid said, "You're kidding. I don't believe you."
Okay, but at least they learn something, right? They learn English and they can use the language.
They can they can use the language to make a connection with their grandparents.
Yeah.
And that's the part that we say, oh, translanguaging can help children build their confidence and develop their bilingual or multilingual identity. This is how. Identity does not exist in vacuum. Identity means I can identify with. This is what I can identify with my family, with my grandparents, with my community. And that's part of my identity because I like drink brown rice tea.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, I think that talking about, you just talk about blended learning and about the task that student can do at home instead of, and to save class time, right?
Yes.
And it takes me to the question about project, because it seems like you are assigning them some kind of projects to do at home, right? So so can you tell me what is the relationship between translanguaging pedagogy and project-based learning? Yes.
Okay, very good connection.
Thank you.
Yes. So project-based learning. I think Vietnam has and National Foreign Language Project also has an initiative on project-based learning. True or not? I think so because my students, one of my students from Vietnam in Hawaii, so he told me that project-based learning is one of the pedagogies that at least in Vietnam Education Administration adapt. So there are lots of ways to connect project-based learning and translanguaging pedagogy. Without going too long with our video, I think project-based learning can be a pedagogy that enhance or bring translanguaging as a necessary skill or a helping children and teachers see a need to translanguage. Because project is usually very fuzzy, not clearly defined. In order to tackle a problem that is not clearly defined, students are put into a situation whom they would act as a researcher, as an investigator, and sometimes as a learner, and sometimes as a teacher. So their roles changes depending on what stage of the project they're in. So, for example, if they are at the stage of being a investigator, for example, in the brown rice example, for a lack of better example, they ask their grandparents the questions. We're doing a project, a research project, and we wanted to find out from our older generations how they make use of, I don't know, green vegetables, how they live their lives through difficulty, how they survive from difficult times where resources were very scarce. So they would then, at the time, they have to speak Vietnamese or other languages to their grandparents. So that experience put them into an investigator role. So, I'm a researcher. I'm collecting data from my grandparents, from my community. That enhance my, you can call it identity or my ability or my resources. So I know when this problem comes, I know who to go to, how to ask the question. So it connects to some other skills we're trying to teach for the 21st century skills, creativity, problem solving, and compassion, right? Only through project-based learning, children can have that freedom and agency to have the space to do. Otherwise, they would sit in the classroom that usually, whether teacher wanted or not, dominated by teacher. Once teacher is present, it's hard for students to play. So when we have that play space, remember we talk about the balance, the teacher can sit at their back seat and relax. Just let children play, right? And if needed, they can come in to facilitate, to encourage, to coach a little bit, and importantly, to observe, to see where the children is at. So I think that's the power of project-based learning, can really bring out the benefits of translanguaging, right? To have children have space to develop their identities, to develop their independent thinking and learning skills, to become different persons, an investigator, a researcher, a reader, a listener, a writer, right?
Yeah, I agree with you about the benefit of project in translanguaging, but there's a thing that do you have any kind of advice about the discipline in the class during the student they conducting the project, and then suddenly the student sometimes they get distracted. They are into playing instead of finishing their project or their product, and then they have in the end they have nothing to for scoring or for rating, for example,
Right.
or for a teacher to assess.
Right.
So that's a problem. So do you have any advice about the discipline so that you can balance between playing and helping them to finish up their products?
Good, very good question, because we too adults, if we watch a movie or YouTube videos, we can get lost. We thought, oh, only 15 minutes, but an hour passed by.
Yeah, and you have you binge watch the whole season.
Exactly. And there's human nature, right? It's human nature that we are easily being absorbed into something fun, into something relaxing, and sometimes these games, or most times these games and the movies, they have a storyline, they have a problem to be resolved, they have a suspense that we just keep going with it. And why cannot we create a similar situation for learning? And the children can get lost in doing projects. At the end, they didn't realize after playing games, they learn all these ecosystems. Why not, right? So to avoid playing too much games, we can put them into the language games, right? Especially the games that we brought are all in English. So they have to learn, what does this rule mean? Let's play, and that rule is wrong, and I want to reinvent the rules. That's all good. At the same time, they're playing with their Vietnamese classmates, so they use both English and Vietnamese. They read the other games in here. This one is called emotional roller coaster. So they read in English all these different emotions, and they can translate them into Vietnamese, or they can just discuss whether you are really stressed or not in Vietnamese. So at least they're reading something in Vietnamese. But I would go back to project-based learning again. That would help students and children to see a need to close up the project, because one of the major principles for project-based learning is to have a product, right? So a product is different from a learning objective, like I need to memorize 10 words, which does not have a product in nature, or a completion of something gave them a closure. I learned it, aha, I struggled, yay, I learned it, I remembered it. But a product requires a longer time. They have to collect data, they have to do research, they have to create a product. So in that sense, we can treat gameplay as a data collection process, right? After playing these games, I would know all these different emotions. And then the project would be, oh, I didn't open this. And the project would be, your neighbor, little Len, was very sad because the grandma just passed away. And we keep using grammar examples, but it's a good one. Okay, right. So then your role is to help little Len to cope with the situation. So then different emotional words would come up. And you learn all of the, there's a coping cards, there's chaos cards. This one says, I'm mad because blah, blah, blah. And there are different emotions for them to know. And you know what? For cognitive development, one aspect of it is if we know what emotions we're dealing with, we're okay to experience sadness. We're okay to experience madness. We're okay to experience anxiety if we know about them. And this is where language really comes in to help us to know, to identify what you are experiencing is sadness. And they learn sadness. After playing these games, you write a little essay how to help Lan to cope with the loss of grandma.
It seems like you bring up the real situation into the class, right? And then you help them to you equip them with the language, and then they can solve the situation themselves.
Exactly. Very good.
Right?
Excellent. Yes, because language and thoughts are interconnected.
Yeah.
If we can express ourselves better, we become more mindful about our thoughts, and we can identify with the thoughts what I'm experiencing with. I'm less stressed.
So it means that translanguaging is not something just about the language. It's much more than that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's also about the emotion, right? About the different modality of the multi-modality. Yeah. In the conversation, in the maybe in real life conversation, right?
Exactly. That's where the one aspect that we stress again and again is the experiencing. Experiencing, to see from beginning to end, so they know how things develop, how things are resulted in certain form as they appear to be, so that they know how to keep on it, so they don't give up. Many children have the problem of, oh, this is too difficult, I can't do it, I would give up. But if we help them to see, if you keep going, you will not only see your product through project-based learning, but also to help them recognize in the process of getting to your project done, you experience these different ways of either dealing with each other or dealing with different emotions. Maybe your teammate is lazy and you're very mad, right? And it's all part of learning. And you're experiencing this in another language, right?
Yes.
English may treat madness differently than Vietnamese culture. Okay, so let's play a game.
Yeah. I love games.
Yeah, so if you are sad, what does it mean in the Vietnamese culture?
If I'm sad, I just I think that I will not talk to anyone and sit there alone. I think so.
Yes.
And maybe doing nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Let's see, if I'm sad, yeah, I would do the same thing. Here in front of our camera, I can share a true story of my sadness on July 1st, which is today is, what day is today? July.
Today is 27th of
27th,
July.
yeah. It's almost 2 months ago.
Mm.
My kitty, my cat, who is 18, was 18 years old, passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, who lived with us for 18 years. So it's like my children. So very sad, very, very sad. Like you, I just relive that memory with the cat, Mickey. I use our cat's examples to teach many of my lectures. So for this, we don't have a picture, but you can imagine a brown color, white face cat. I also dealt with the sadness in the same way as you did. And one of my friend and colleague, actually, I have her book in one of the resources that we purchased for this project, and mindfulness. She helped me to draw. She likes to paint, so we draw a cat. That really helped me to express my feelings for the cat and for my loss. Right? So different cultures have different ways of experiencing emotions.
And even we try to avoid talking about our loss and our sadness.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And other cultures, they deal with it differently, right? And there are different perspectives from different gender, different age. So all of this we can experience from different language. That means different perspectives from another culture. And that's part of learning. It's part of language learning. That usually in our regular language classrooms, we don't get to deal with. Right?
Yeah.
We don't get to deal with. That's why English language or other foreign languages can be so abstract. When it's so abstract, there's no meaning for children to make with. Then how can they be motivated to learn anything if it doesn't make sense to them? Once it becomes intimate to them, or once they have connection with the language, they will play with it. They would make a big deal about it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I have another question. Is that it is believed that students should like maximize their chances to speak English in the classroom, so they get more practice, right?
Yes.
So if translanguaging is encouraged in the classroom, so that means they can speak Vietnamese, right? Or speak their home language in the English classroom. Right? So that also means that they cannot like maximize their chances to speak English.
Right.
So do you have like any explanation on this?
Okay. Yes, I will try. But let's recall this translanguaging phenomenon as a social linguistic phenomenon, originated to describe people grown up bilingually or multilingually, like Spanish speakers grown up in the United States, right? Their home languages can be Spanish, and their school languages is English. But in Vietnam, it's slightly different or dramatically different.
Yeah.
It's different, right? You don't grown up in Vietnamese, or you don't grown up in English and then the society speaks Vietnamese, right? You grown up with Vietnamese and the society's functional language is Vietnamese, right?
It is quite special in some regions in Vietnam. For example, for some kind of ethnic minority groups, they may have their own language,
Right.
not Vietnamese. And then when they, for example, the children from ethnic minority groups, when they grow up with their own language and they come to the school and they start their education with the Vietnamese. So that is the case in our country.
Right. So they grown up multilingually.
Yeah.
Right. So in that case, and they know could you provide an example of a minority language?
For example, in the northern mountainous area,
Mm-hmm.
some ethnic groups they grow up with like we call them Thai language.
Dai.
Thai language.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, Dai Zu. Dai.
No, Tay.
Tay. Oh, when we went to the museum, we
Yeah.
saw the house Dai. I think it's Dai Zu. Yes. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thai language, and
Mhm.
and they have their own ethnic language.
Mhm.
So, and when they come to school, they are they will learn in Vietnamese,
Mhm.
and they start speaking Vietnamese
Mhm.
from then. Yeah.
Yes. So I can see two situations. One is that the teacher may not speak Dai, right?
Right.
The English teacher is bilingual in Vietnamese and English, but may not know the home language that Dai students speak at home. So in that situation, how can we maximize English language practice? Or the question is whether maximization of English speaking
Yes.
is correct or not, right? So
And one more concern is that, for example, if I were the teachers in those school with those students,
yeah.
So when they translanguaging, translanguage in their home language, I don't know their language, right?
Right.
So I may feel lose control.
Right.
In my class, so I lose control. So
Yeah.
what can I do to help
Yeah.
in this situation? Right?
Okay, so first the maximization. The second, maybe we can answer the second question. Yeah.
Great.
So when that happens, you're the teacher, I'm the student, I speak Dai, and you have no idea what I'm speaking about. I'm doing collaboration with another classmate, also from Dai minority group, and we are speaking Dai, and you have no idea. So in that situation, an experienced teacher may just say, the goal of this group work is for you to teach us something about your minority group. Depends on the unit, depends on that lesson of that day. Maybe on I remember there's a unit in the textbook about the houses, right? So for you to teach us about the special way of building houses in your mountainous area, why your house maximize or optimize the natural resources like the sun, the wind, or the rain for the thick roof of your house. Your goal, we want to learn from you. Please teach us some, right? So you as a teacher want to learn from me and my classmate. Even though when I'm working with my classmate, we're using Dai and English translanguage, but the product I'm showing you is in English. The sense-making process, even though I cannot understand the language, but I can see from my observation, you are doing the drawing, you're looking up the resources from your phone, if phone is allowed, right? Your homework shows that you have talked to your parents or taking pictures of the houses there. You are on task, right? One of the in the chapter I also wrote about giftedness, how giftedness can be developed through translanguaging, through developing 21st century skills. Which one of the characteristics of giftedness is laser sharp focusing. You are able to focusing on the task. The commitment is strong. Once we can see that engagement from children, doesn't matter. Remember, language is only one mode. They're doing collaboration, they're taking pictures, they're doing drawing, they're talking about how to present this house to my teacher and my other classmates from different minority groups or from Vietnam, from Hanoi city center. We can observe that modality of engagement. From the teacher point of view, they're engaged. I'm chill. I'm okay with it because I know they're not off task. They are on the laser beam of focusing on their task, right? So that's another aspect of translanguaging is modality. We have to recognize the interaction. Once they're engaged, we know they're on task. So I'm okay with that. What would you be okay with that?
I think that first I have to deal with some kind of emotion, like I have to like listen to something that I don't know, right? And the first time is quite like a little bit something out of control. So a feeling of kind of insecure, you know.
At the beginning, yes.
Yeah, at the beginning, and then we have to like observe them closely.
Right.
And sometimes we have to like be the learner of
Right.
our own students.
Exactly.
Right?
Now you turn yourself to be a learner of them. And again, in this sense, the project-based learning pedagogy really plays an important role because you have a product. So the students who are on task has time pressure to produce something. That needs to be really stressed. Otherwise, they can go on and on and on. You won't be able to finish it, and would affect the later units.
I think so. So I think that now we should like have a kind of very good at planning. So we divide the task in very detail, and so we set the timeline or time frame for each activity.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah. So the idea of time management and classroom management. Clear boundaries of place. Grammar place, play place of experiencing. Right? The continuous. Expectation is product. So if we like gameplay, there are rules, right? But you don't need to really follow the rules blindly, but the rules at times really constrain how we get things done. Yeah, so important.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting so far. And I think we need a break.
What do you think?
You should take a break now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, break.
Break time.
Yeah.
No.
Do they know?
I'm not sure. Just
all the videos you can. So I still need to say I'm thank to the NFRP and National Department of State, all that stuff. Yeah, we didn't say that.
Wow.
Oh. But we can move it to the beginning.
Here, grade 6, unit 11, Our Greener World.
Oh, we got it right.
Yeah. And
good, excellent. And
this
this
unit
is
2 book.
that's for high school.
And Your Body and You.
This is high school.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad I got it right.
I have to ask you about this for upper secondary school, right?
Yeah. Good. So we can start the next part. I'll say that again.
I'm not sure how long does it take.
What time is it? How many questions left?
I think there's not much question left. I have this question and some question about like actually you have already answered all the question within one answer. So this. Anh Bình ơi, bọn em đang nghỉ khoảng 5 phút anh ạ. Vừa rồi là hết một cái rồi. Yeah. The first video. but I think that first video can be divided into